have been working in addiction since 1987. I've been all over the place. I was a licensed clinical supervisor. I'm licensed to sell insurance. I'm a health coach, a personal trainer, an EMT, a firefighter, an EMT instructor. I've written a bunch of books. I just finished writing my 31st book. I think it's my 31st book. It might be my 32nd book.
Welcome, everyone, to the One Moment Podcast. You got your boy, Kevin Odom. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor, a licensed clinical addiction specialist, and a certified clinical supervisor in the state of North Carolina. I'm also here with my co-host, Mr. Trevor Zalstra. And we have a phenomenal, humorous, and just a very humble Mr. Scott Graham. Now, I've read his bio. Trevor's read his bio. So let's start with the introduction of him, because I don't want to spoil it, because this guy's been killing me all day since he's been on. Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Am I doing my own bio?
Yeah, I'm going to let you do it.
This is organic?
It's an organic piece. Well, I have been working in addiction since 1987, and I've been all over the place. I have more licenses. You've got the licensed mental health. I was licensed clinical supervisor. I'm licensed to sell insurance. I'm a health coach, a personal trainer, an EMT, a firefighter, an EMT instructor. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I've written a bunch of books. I just finished writing my 31st book. I think it's my 31st book. It might be my 32nd book. I'm not sure. But it's over 30. I know that for sure. It's over 30.
Wow. That blows me away. That shows me a level of dedication and motivation. I have to ask, okay? I ask every therapist this, okay? Every person that works in the healthcare field, especially a therapist.
Okay, I'm ready.
What? What made you pursue substance use therapy in the substance use field? I'm curious.
Oh, God. It's that question, right? All right, so I was working as a bartender. True, absolutely true. I mean, it's not how a lot of people got into substance abuse, but I was not drinking addictively. But I got out of school, and I had gotten, this was like 1987, I got my degree in psychology, and I was just not sure what I wanted to do. And somebody said, oh, you got to get this job. There's this inner city school. You can work with inner city youth and be really great. And so off I went to work with the inner city youth at this program, and we were doing drug and alcohol assessments, and they had an after school program, and then they had an alternative school for kids that were really in upheaval of the school. And I didn't really like it, but it was okay. And then in the midst of that, I got a call from Beach Hill Hospital, which is a rehab hospital. It was a rehab hospital in New Hampshire. It was in addictions heyday. Like, there was a time in addictions when the faucet was turned, so it was like you could do anything you wanted to because there was money flowing from the government, money from insurance. Everybody was paying for everything. 28 days, 38 days, 58, they didn't care. And this program ran an adolescent program that was a merger of wilderness therapy and substance use. And it wasn't the wilderness therapy like the crazy ones in Utah where they drag you out and they, force you to, march for days. They don't give you any water and shit. Like, it wasn't like that. It was really like a normal program. And they had trouble. They would either find instructors who were good, had good wilderness skills, but they were knuckleheads. Or they found therapists who had good clinical skills, but they were like waiting to be rescued because they had no wilderness skills. And I had a little bit of both. I wasn't a knucklehead and I wasn't a really great therapist, but I had a little bit of both. They were like, you're perfect. And I came in and got a job, and it was a great job. It was the best job I've ever had, because we'd work for 3 weeks at a time, 24/7, with these kids out in the field, and then we'd have a couple weeks off. And so what it allowed me to do as a therapist was basically experiment on I wasn't thinking of this at the time, but we were experimenting with techniques on these kids. Oh, let's do a check-in in the morning, and then let's do this in the evening, and let's do that. And you have 3 weeks of that. And then you'd be on another course with different instructors, and you'd be like, let's do this on this course. And we try something a little different. And so I got a wealth of experience by having that dynamic play out. Yeah, it was a great program. I really miss it. It was a nice start. To answer the question?
Yes, you did.
Did I?
Okay. It is interesting that you worked on a wilderness camp, because in North Carolina we used to have quite a few of them, but over the years with regulations and cutting of funding and all of that, I know there's one that's probably about 45 minutes south of me. I forget the name of it, but it's I think it's I think it's a year stay there. Medicaid will pay for 6 months, and then of course, you got to go back through the process and get another 6 months. I think it's individuals age 12 to 17 can go there, maybe 11. I don't remember if they go below, how far young they go, but they are one of the last few or last standing in North Carolina. Yeah, yeah, and those
It
things
was a
are
great program because you really, people didn't get protected from their consequences. And I'm not saying that it was we didn't have to be tough. If you didn't pack your gear the right way, then there was a consequence to that. If you were farting around in the morning and not getting everything packed, there was a consequence to that. And so we threaded all of these things about life and addictions and responsibility and maturity throughout the whole program. It was and each day, each moment of each day was a learning opportunity for people.
Yeah, no, you're and that's the way the wilderness camps work. I think it goes back into natural consequences. It teaches legitimately natural consequences. And think about even when we were younger, when and I can't say for anybody else, but I remember growing up, my mom would say, "Hey, boy, you gonna eat what's on the table, or you gonna go to bed starving?" Right? I mean, it was legitimately natural consequences. You want to starve or you want to eat? Which one? I mean, you got two options.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah, it's changed today. It's different. It's much different for all
yeah,
of us.
really. Well, see, I don't raise kids, so yeah. So, you spoke about 30 something books, right? 31, 32 plus books, right?
Yes, I'm
Where do
crazy.
you find your books at if they want to read up on it?
All you have to do is Google G. Scott Graham, which is my name. It's in the purple right there. And even if you spell it badly, Google will give you everything. You'll probably even see this podcast, and you'll see like all my books that are floating out there. Or you can go to gscottgraham.com. It's pretty easy to find me. And they're written on everything you could possibly ever think of possibly writing a thing on. I swear to God. From gardening to teaching your dogs how to paddleboard to the issues around marijuana legalization that are plaguing the country to the use of MDMA to deal with grief to, the list goes on and on. Buddhist psychotherapy. There's one on interpreting the Mangala Sutta into creating a life design. I wrote a book on gardening. I wrote a book on time management.
Wow. Yeah, man,
This,
you just well well-rounded in
Or
many
crazy.
aspects of life.
Yeah, I got too much time on my hands. Maybe that's it.
I wouldn't say it's too much time, but Trev, you were about to say something.
One of the biggest things that I was trying to think of, ask you was, what has been the most difficult topic that you've tried to cover that was the most problematic for you? You had covered through the research.
I just realized this recently, that I really need to write addictively. That's what I really need to do to produce something. And so it needs to capture me. And then I just need to like go and go and go. It's funny in this world, we're all raised and we're not imprinted, maybe isn't the right word, but somebody has told us someplace, this is the way you need to be, or this is the way you should do it, or some other bullshit like that. And for years, I really struggled because I thought the way to write was to write a little bit every day. Sit down. There's some myth out there. I don't know if this is true. That's why I'm kind of called a myth. That Stephen King writes an hour every day. And then he goes about doing whatever he needs to do. He just writes for an hour every day. I don't know if I believe that. But there's this piece out there there's this view, especially in like coaching and recovery, that they're like, they portray this image of this person who like gets up at 4:00 in the morning and does 45 minutes of meditation. And then they drink this juice that they've made from plants that they've grown on their own property. And then they go to the gym for a half an hour and they do all this other stuff. Then they come home, they journal. Then they sit down and read some meditation book, maybe something out of some recovery book. And then it goes on. Then they meditate some more, have some coffee, and then they go on in this glorious day farting rainbows. And it just doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. And so I bought into that for years. And I tried to put that round peg in this square hole for years and years and years. I felt like a failure. And then I was just like, you know what? I just got to write the way I want to write. And so if that means that I'm writing obsessively and only eating Oreo cookies all weekend long and staying up till 3:00 in the morning because I'm really passionate about something, I'm going to do it that way. And since I've done that, it's been like a massive shift. Massive. Like books are coming out like crazy.
That sounds amazing, because in recovery and addiction recovery and specialities, there is no certain exact way that is the prescribed way. This is the way you do it. You have to do this. You have to do that. So you have to have a sense of mindedness. And it makes me curious to ask you another question about what was the thing that was developed in you for you to have the open-mindedness enough to be able to walk down this path?
I think I just realized it's almost like I hit bottom on something, like it wasn't working for me the way that I was doing it. And the way that other people were telling me and encouraging me to do it. And I finally just got fed up and was like, I got to try something different. We talk about treatment, and, like even in treatment, there are people that have these marching orders that they strive to come in with, right? There are people who come into treatment and they say, you know what? Everybody needs to, I know this is an overgeneralization, but there are people that come into treatment and like, everybody needs to be medicated. And they want to give every single person, some sort of antidepressant pill, anti-anxiety pill, ADHD pill, and on and on and on and on it goes. And there are people that come into treatment like, that's not the way to do it. And then there are other people that come into treatment and say, the 12 steps are the only way. And by God, if you're not going to meetings and you haven't done this, in fact, what we're going to do for therapy is we're going to do first step work, blah, 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 blah. Then you have all these other folks who are like, no, we're not going to do it that way. And then you go to do your treatment plans and you try to be a little creative on the treatment plan, but you're employer has bought some package that has preloaded treatment plans on it. You're like, ding, 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 and you just fill in the person's name and it spits something out because they need to have something to be compliant with the state and insurance, and it goes on and on and on. All these things, people telling you what to do all over the place. Am I right?
Yes, you are. That's one of the reasons why we established this podcast. We push those stigmas and those stereotypical and those cultural or religious ideas or systematic ideas away.
I mean, you said this is the reason you started this podcast, was that so people can see it's not, you don't have to follow that path that these other folks are necessarily saying. Figure it out, make your own path.
And that is the type of freedom to me, in the sense that you can make your own decision. But you also have to have, so I like the idea of the help that you're giving other people, because you're still working to the extent that it's going to help other people recover their lives. And that's the most part of it to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I do have a question, because in some of your bio, right, you said that you wanted to talk about how grief reemerges in unexpected ways, how psychedelic therapy and meditation supported your journey, and why wellness isn't about arriving, it's about staying. You wrote about that. Now,
I did. I wrote like 4 books about that.
right? And I don't think we've ever had anybody on our show specifically with that experience. Now, before we go there, I'd like to say absolutely, I 100% agree over what you just said. It's about challenging the status quo. You have all of these people that saying person-centered treatment. Well, I'd like to question them back. What the hell is person-centered treatment when you're telling me how I got to provide treatment to this patient who doesn't even want what the hell you're telling me to do?
Right.
Right. So I agree with you on what you're saying. Absolutely. Absolutely. Carl Rogers is turning in his grave right now, just so you know, as we're sitting here talking.
Who's Carl?
Yeah. Do what?
Who is Carl Rogers?
He is the father of
Kind of like the father of talk therapy, like listening, reflections, you know.
I've heard of him.
Somebody who is really, really into Carl Rogers is just reflecting. So I'll show you. Kevin and I will do this. So I'll even turn this way so I'm facing Kevin. So Kevin, tell me how you're feeling.
I'm feeling emotionally exhausted.
Oh, so you're feeling emotionally exhausted.
Yes, you are absolutely right. Yes, sir.
Yes, I can see that. That's Carl Rogers. See how that was like?
Right.
Crazy.
Look, Carl Rogers is a great theorist. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But the way it's turned now, right, is not so much us telling people what to do, but it's you got this agency, this entity, this organization, this accreditation, this person, that person, this person, that person, these entities, these idiots, these people, these dummies, these people, that people, those people. You got to do it like this. Well, where does the patient come into play at? And so that's what we were just talking about. So I was surprised to literally hear you say that, and you just brightened up my day when you said it, like 100%. I love the fact that we're on here challenging the status quo. I love it.
I work with a guy named Jack. It's funny in your career, there are these things, or your life, there are these things that happen that stand out like pivotal moments or lighthouses, like you just remember them. And Jack was in recovery. We were doing stuff with the Vermont Department of Corrections together, and he was like really bad at his paperwork. And if you're a clinician and you're really bad at your paperwork, that becomes the total focus of what needs to happen. And I remember coming in, Jack had just gotten grilled by his supervisor about, you need to do this and that. And Jack was like 800 years old. He was just waiting to retire. They couldn't fire him. He was just there. There was nothing they could do. And he had this guy's clinical chart. This was paper back then. That's how long ago this was. And he pushed back from his desk like this, and he took that chart and he flung it across the room, and he goes, well, at least his fucking chart won't relapse. I was like, yeah. I remember that so clear. I saw that chart wing by me and I saw him do that. I'm like, wow, yeah, he's exactly right. That's like that was the focus, right? Knew nothing about whatever was going on with the client. He was trying to talk to his supervisor, and his supervisor didn't want to hear anything about that. You got to get that paperwork done.
Yeah, no, and I think that's why they're now I went to NatCon 25. I don't know if you were there in Philly this year. Definitely would encourage you. I'm going to NADAC conference in Seattle in October. But one of the biggest focuses was at NatCon. This was across the board theme. I mean, theme after speaker after class, group after group was, let's force the field to get back to the patient, right? If instead of waiting on the government to do something, instead of waiting on this agency, that entity, and the policy and procedures and this, that, and the third, let's force it to happen ourselves, because the running theme was this: we've gotten so far away from the client and from the person, it's not even funny. Yeah. So I definitely agree with what you're saying, is at least the chart's not going to relapse, but what's more important, the chart or this person right here?
Right. Like when you went to graduate school and got licensed, I'm not sure what your background is, but you became a helping professional. You weren't like, people didn't come up to you and say, what do you want to do? And you said, I want to be a really good chart maker when I grow up. My goal in life is to take great clinical notes, and I hope that I really master SOAP or DAP or whatever the hell it is that you're doing on your piece. Right? Who says that, right? No.
Nobody. Yeah. Nah. And I get the importance of the documentation, because it shows that I did this with the patient. But I remember working with an agency, and the state had come in, and the agency had did their audit, and everybody else. They were saying, well, you didn't put this patient's medical diagnosis on this treatment plan. And I looked at them. I said, well, that's because the patient said they didn't want to work on anything, that they were good for the moment. Well, we're going to have to document, you lost a point for this. And I'm like, a point for doing what the patient wanted to do? Like, that's the patient's prerogative.
Right.
If they want to go see a cancer specialist, like, I can't force them. I can ask them. And if they want to go see a kidney doctor, I can ask them. Give a referral if they tell me. But if they don't say no, I can't make them. And listen, it's so yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's gotten overregulated in many areas. And yeah, 100%. I could not agree more.
I worked for the Department of Corrections. I really pushed for, and many of the sites that I supervised switched over. We did, and it really rocked some therapists. We did collaborative progress notes. So they were DAP format. So it wasn't SOAP. So D just come. For those of you who are listening, D is description, A is assessment, P is plan. And a SOAP is statement, objective, assessment, and plan. So the D just combines the first two. Other than that, they're exactly the same. And we did these collaborative plans that was on a one-pager. And at the end of the session, the client would write out what they did during the therapy group, and then the therapist would write a line, and the therapist would write the assessment. This is what riled the therapists, because there's some therapists that like try to work out their shit by writing crappy things about patients in the assessment part. And so therapists had to write their assessment, and then the client wrote their plan on what they were going to do before the next meeting, and then both the client and the therapist signed it, and then that went in their clinical chart. And we did that for years until the state came in, and they were like, no, that's not very professional, blah 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 blah. And so then we were just doing some generic bullshitty plan, and the state was so happy. But these were really motivating because, the client wrote what their plan was before the next.
Does anyone else have that one tool that makes building a website a breeze? In an era driven by digital change, WebHash is the indispensable tool that holds the key to effortless website creation. Create websites that endure, defy censorship, and bypass any single point of failure. As cutting-edge technology redefines reality, seize the power to build beyond limits. Join the Web3 revolution now and forge paths others can only dream of. Visit our site today and build your legacy. Building my own space on the web was always a grind until I hit up WebHash. Their no-code builder is my ace. It's swift and solid. It's like rocking a digital fortress that's immune to the typical shutdowns. Level up your web presence without stress. Ready to stake your claim in the digital realm? Dive into WebHash today, connect your Web3 wallet, and get started. They have multiple subscription plans, from a free version to a lifetime subscription. Check them out today at webhash.com. Most importantly, they sponsor the One Moment podcast, helping to raise awareness to critical topics in the healthcare field. Our official website was built using the WebHash platform. Throughout the projects that the One Moment movement built on WebHash, they stood behind and supported it all the way. Sign up and start building your website today. Don't forget to visit onemoment.chain.box and subscribe to our social media channels.
And for me, it's all about the treatment plan is a collaboration between myself and the person has a right to review a note from that day's session. They have a right to review the treatment plan. Shoot, give the patient a copy of the treatment plan before they even leave your office, right?
Absolutely.
There's so much. I've sat down with folks and said, how about this? Since you want to practice silence, then come over here and help me write this note. Come on, let's pull up this chair real quick. And we'll sit down and we'll write the note together, and I'll have them help me. Hey, how do you want me to word this? This is my thoughts. How do you want me to word this? So I agree with what you're saying on that one. So I want to know more about the psychedelics, the grief, all of that. So let's start at the top then. And then I'm going to let Trev ask you the next question after you answer it, of course, or after we talk about it.
Let's start with grief.
Yeah, grief reemerges in unexpected ways. So we know what grief is. I want to hear your experience and what you mean by you would like to talk about how it can or how it does.
I don't think we know what grief is. Not really. I think there's clinical pieces out there. I worked as a therapist for decades and decades. And it wasn't until my spouse died in a horrific car accident and I experienced grief directly that I realized how fucked up we are about how we think about grief.
You got a good first, and I'm sorry to hear that.
The first one that's about that, thank you, is that grief is a process and that grief is bad and that grief is some problem to be solved and grief is something to be fixed. And people say things like you did, I'm sorry. And that's all silliness, complete and utter silliness. Starting off with the stages of grief, which Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who came up with those pieces, she was focused on cancer people who were dying, end of life stuff. And she wrote on death and dying.
Thank you. Can you please repeat that for the people in the back? I've been screaming that for years. Thank you.
It was hijacked. It was fucking hijacked. And she wrote an article before she died where she said, I wish I never came up with this concept. It's been used for everything. You know what? You can tell me this because you work in a treatment center. I remember when I was active in a treatment center, people were told, you have to go through the grieving process around alcohol because alcohol was your friend and they're dead now and you've got to go through this. So you have to go through anger and depression and denial and bargaining, all fucking bullshit.
Completely. That's
yes.
Do you know how? Listen, people I've been asked as a clinician, well, why don't you just give them the 5 stages of grief because they lost their stat in the third? I'm like, Why not use existential therapy? It works 10 times better.
Yes. So that's complete baloney. And there's a and you know what? I feel really shitty about this. I have to tell you, I really do, because for years, until I came out on the other side and experienced directly, I did exactly that piece. Here's the 5 stages of grief. You got to work through it with your sobriety, blah 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 blah. If you don't get to the acceptance stage, you're going to relapse, yada yada yada, or any other piece around that. And it's just not true. Just not true. There is so that was my first discovery where I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody forgets, everybody thinks you need to move on. Every single grief book out there, I would say it's an exaggeration. 98.2% of the grief books out there are all about get through the process. There's going to be joy and heavenly angels once you're on the other side. And that's not true. And here's why. Because grief is the reflection of a life well lived. Grief is a reflection of a life well lived. The deeper you love, the deeper you expose yourself, the more risk you take, the greater your grief. They go together just like that. And for somebody to say, this grief's not valid, they're disrespecting all the love that you had, all the vulnerability that you had, all the joy that you had with another person. For someone to come up, I mean, imagine putting a timeline on a parent whose kid was shot at school. How dare we do that? How dare we do that? How can you measure the magnitude of that loss? That person lost such a huge piece. They are never going to recover that. And you know what? They don't need to be medicated. They do not need to be medicated because it's just a natural part of our life and our process.
That makes a lot of good sense to me. That makes a lot of good sense to me because
Trev, give me 10 seconds, okay?
go ahead, Kevin.
If you don't mind, please. Absolutely. 100% agree. And my grief book, from a clinical perspective, dead serious, in outpatient and inpatient, has been the same since I've stumbled upon it and I fell upon it. Man's Search for Meaning. The best book, one of the best books ever written in the clinical therapy philosophy field. And I always tell patients, for all of my grief, 100%, every single grief patient, go buy this book, read a page or two a day, a week, read a paragraph a day, whatever you need to do, and find you some meaning and hope in that relationship itself. Don't worry about trying to hurry it up. Don't worry about trying to grow. Don't worry about trying to. You just go through this process. I'm here to walk with you through that mud.
Sure.
And for those, I know you, and Trevor, before you for you people that are listening or watching this, Man's Search for Meaning was written by a guy named Viktor Frankl. He was a Jew in a concentration camp in Germany, and he survived a concentration camp. This is an oversimplification. And then years later, he's like, what the fuck? And he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning. And Kevin's absolutely right. Read that book. That is a brilliant book. Yeah.
Go ahead, Trev.
So I kind of have a little bit of a sidetrack to go back to this guy Carl you're talking about and the modalities that are prescribed as supposed treatment. And the reason I say supposed is because Sigmund Freud had a competitor, I think by the last name Adler. Are you familiar with his main? Okay, so Adler was pushed off to the side, and nobody paid attention to his theories and his concepts. and everybody just mandatorily thought, okay, Sigmund Freud, he's the guy. He's got the shit together. He's got the therapeutical, the modalities, all the concepts and characteristics and regimen developed and prescribed, and so that's what we'll use. But they pushed away, they stigmatically discarded the other gentleman, Adler. And so I ran across an article just the other day, a promotion to in depth search a little bit more about what Adler's concepts were. So do you have an experience that could possibly confirm that this guy Adler had a better solution than Freud? Because that's the whole business of therapeutical and clinical research and therapy and all treatments are based off from beginnings out of Freud. So can you explore a little bit with us, or give some insight into this guy Adler and what he had going on?
Well, what we have to realize with all of these theories that are out there is and I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to say that there's this like secret cabal out there that's running things. Right. But if we just, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. This is not about that at all. Right. But the truth of our society, and you're going to be like, holy shit, he's absolutely right. The truth of our society is that there are political and socio forces that are at play. And that comes to be whether it's Adler or Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung, what floats out there. Let's just look at addictions. There was a time when there was not a diagnosis for addictions. People voted on it. There was lobbyists that came to play. There were Mothers Against Drunk Drivers that wanted everybody shot. And then there was like insurance companies that said we can do it. It became a diagnostic piece, right? Think about the fact that until I think it was 1974, millions of gay men and lesbians in the United States had mental health problems. Take them out, medicate them, give them electroshock therapy, boom, boom, boom. One day, overnight, the American Psychological Association got together and erased that part of the book. Everybody was cured in one day because of a vote. The diagnosis went away. Isn't that crap potty? And then people pushed to make it back. So they know now there's other sides, lobbyists putting this stuff in to try to bring it back. And so people say, well, which is really ridiculous, because it's like, well, okay, so being gay is not a diagnosis, but if you're struggling with being gay, then that's the diagnosis, because you haven't accepted yourself, and now we're going to do whatever to you. Well, that's stupid, because every single person who has come out as gay has struggled with being gay. No one doesn't struggle with being gay in a society that doesn't like gay people. You're going to struggle with being gay. It's the same thing that happened. It was in 2022 or 2023. They voted again, these ding-dongs in the American Psychological Association, and there is now a diagnosis called complicated grief, which is and the central, all these diagnoses, for those of you who are listening, have criteria. You have to meet 4 of them or 5 of them. And one of the central criteria of the diagnosis of complicated grief is that your grieving takes longer than society thinks it should. Well, who the fuck comes up with that idea? How long is it supposed to last, right? So then if it takes longer, then here's some medication to help you with that. And so the fact that I still have feelings come up when I talk about grief, you saw it just a few moments ago when I was talking about simple grief and love. He's got complicated grief, right? It's stupid. But you know what? Trevor did it. Trevor said it. That's it, right? That's it. Money.
Does anyone else have that one moment where everything feels too overwhelming to handle? Fortunately, there are therapeutic resources where you will learn the skills necessary to bring clarity and focus amidst chaos, making everything feel manageable again. At Mindfully Me Counseling, we guide you towards clarity and calm with personalized therapy. Embrace your self-care today. Visit mindfulhumancounselingplc.com to learn more. We sponsor the One Moment podcast. They meet weekly to discuss critical topics related to mental health, raising awareness on various topics such as substance use, suicide, trauma, family, and more. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about the podcast and to be connected to additional resources. Subscribe to their social media channels for more information.
Yeah. No, it is about money, because if you got the more of a lobbyist and the more power you have in DC and at all these places that you can vote, make stuff happen, the more likely it is to pass. That's why in North Carolina, we're the only state left. As soon as Blue Cross Blue Shield makes a decision, everybody else follows, right? And we're the only state left where that power, the power of the insurance industry, is still had, all because of lobbyists and all of this right here.
Right.
And it's sad, because in the meantime, you're hurting people. You are hurting people who need help. I have never once in my whole professional career ever rushed anybody to say, listen, you got 2 weeks to grieve, or you got 4 weeks. First time I ever had to really deal with it, I had an individual lost their wife, and I've worked with them for quite a while at this time. I mean, we were good therapeutic relationship, right? Like, and you know how one is. And long story short, the Mrs. passed away, and literally for a whole month, he'd come in my office, sit down, and cry. I wouldn't even say 2 words. And this was every week on week. Sometimes 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week, where I'm just sitting there literally just like this. Just pass him the tissues.
You had to buy more tissues.
Right. I'm checking my phone because I'm just sitting there letting him cry. There's nothing for me to say. He's just crying. And then one day he comes in, it was about 30, 45 days later, he comes in. We actually have a therapy session where we're talking back and forth. First time in like a month and a half where he's not even crying. He's laughing, having a good time, feeling great, all of that stuff. And all it did was for me to bill insurance and say, patient came in here crying for a whole hour session, clinician provided safe space. I didn't diagnose him as complicated grief, PTSD, freaking, hey, dude, I think you might need to go up on your medication. I didn't do none of that. I didn't even have to give a referral. Didn't even think about it. It was like, hey, you've got some grief support groups if you need it, but the dude just needed a safe space to cry for an hour. That was it. That was the diagnosis for him, and my treatment plan was come in here and cry for an hour. I'll bill your insurance company. It's okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So no, you are right. I agree with you. I've been saying this stuff for a long time. I'm so glad you're on. You are literally on the show today. Like, you're speaking my language. When I had to go through and do a book report on the DSM-5, my last sentence was a question in my book report, and I said, how much are we going to chop something up just to put a diagnosis on it? Who is society? And then this is I question various diagnoses. Right. But who am I to say what is abnormal energy in a child versus this is normal? Who am I to say that grief takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 6 months? It's an individual journey that people go.
Yeah. We are too eager in this world to pigeonhole people so that we can either dismiss them or medicate them or push them on to something else. We live, and I'm not trying to be cynical or be Debbie Downer here, but we live in a world where it's easier to give somebody Ozempic than it is to talk about nutrition, exercise, join a gym, have better health. Now, I'm not saying that there are people who don't need Ozempic, but it's like gone crazy now. It's like somebody goes and talks to their primary care physician and says, "I'm really sad," and they're like, "Oh, you want some antidepressants?" And they can write the prescription on that. I know, and then boom, they write the prescription, and then and there's no question of like, what are you trying to do this? It's the same thing we went with all the pain medications a few years ago. Remember, everybody was like popping out pain medication like M&Ms, right? Everybody, have some oxycodone. You want some oxycodone? Hey, it's a great drug. And now it's like completely in the other direction.
My God, they're
right?
addicted.
What?
I said, oh God, they're addicted. We got to help them.
Yeah,
Right.
surprise.
Right.
Right. It's the same thing that people are doing. Is marijuana legal in he's gone. So you can he's back. Is marijuana legal in North Carolina?
Marijuana isn't, but we have this whole new CBD industry, which if we get into it, I'll tell you about it. And then, but yeah, I'm gonna go grab my charger real quick.
All right, you go grab your charger, and I'll talk about the marijuana industry while you're gone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine with me. I don't care because I'll put a whole presentation together for this. Like I'm about to submit it for CEUs. 100%.
Well, go get the charger and come back so that you can say, "Oh wow, Scott, you're right. I'm so glad you're here."
So here in Colorado, where I live.
Oh, you live in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And marijuana has been legalized here for a good long time. But if there's any legal issues, even misdemeanor issues, automatically no alcohol, no marijuana use, even though we're gonna promote it. And
that's really good. Go closer. You were good just there. So I heard that in Colorado, you're the heart of marijuana legalization. But if someone gets in trouble, there's no drinking or no smoking pot.
Yeah. And same thing in Michigan, my home state. And now it's being promoted all across the nation, legalized. Everybody wants to use it, but yet they don't understand that if they get into any kind of type of trouble, the legal system will automatically take away your rights to make any decisions for yourself. So the individualistic expression of oneself, especially if it comes to legal or a legal thing, it really takes your freedom away from you. So even though we're in a country, we're not really in a free country to make whatever decision you want to as a human being. And that's really a hard thing to deal with a lot of the times. Everything being discussed about in this episode thus far is like another customized episode of the One Moment Podcast. And that's really, really cool to me. I'm proud to be a part of this thing. Get these issues out there on the open because they're pushed, they're diminished so bad that people will make decisions based on what they get from someone's back instead of the individual person themselves. So it's
So Trevor, it's your fault that we're in this marijuana thing because you're out in Colorado, and Colorado and Oregon set the stage for marijuana legalization in all the other states.
right.
And so I thought it was Big Pharma that was behind it, but it turns out that it was Trevor that's behind the whole thing. So
it is big.
No.
What there's big pharma somewhere in there in the CBD industry. It's a beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Got the almighty greenback behind it to produce lots and lots of it. And then each state or each government entity, even the local ones, can prescribe a certain way to be in their area, and they'll get a little dipping into that pot of it. So
yeah,
everything boils.
So this is what happens across the states. The first thing is that this has been true all around the country. First thing that happens is all this CBD stuff comes through. And then there was an error in the 2018 federal farm bill that allowed THC to produce by hemp, not marijuana, which is kind of like hemp. I mean, but it's a roundabout way to do it, that you can get Delta 8 and Delta 9 THC in these CBD products that it's not marijuana because it's produced from hemp, not from marijuana. It's a loophole. And so that stuff gets going on. And then all these people jump in, these charlatans jump in, producing all this crap that's now being sold in gas stations and other places, and kids are taking it, and people are all getting bent out of shape about that. Then the marijuana industry comes along, and the first thing they do is they focus on medical marijuana. Medical marijuana, we have to, and then people are like, okay, we will legalize medical marijuana, and you have to get a medical marijuana card, which you have to buy, and then it costs this, and marijuana products are right through the roof in terms of cost for that. And then once people get used to that, they move on to recreational use, and then that's how it gets put in place. I'm not saying this is bad or good. I'm just saying this is the way it is. And the problem with this is that they railroad this along without any forethought about anything. So the result is, here's the result. The first thing is that people are going around saying, of course I have to smoke marijuana. I have a medical issue. I'm anxious. I'm this. I'm that. And all kinds of other bullshit. Think about it this way. People are like talking about microdosing, right? Think about microdosing. I'm just going to give you a comparison. You're going to realize how fucking asinine this is. So people microdose marijuana. People are now talking, the same thing is happening with psychedelics, psilocybin. So people are microdosing marijuana, and that means that they're doing it a little bit, every hour or so. If we had a person come to work, and let's say that person said, I'm really nervous about doing that PowerPoint presentation to the whole, board at 1:00, you know what? I need to have a martini. And you know what? I have a medical issue. I have anxiety. And so I really need a martini an hour to help me get through the day. And in the morning, I know it's not so good to have martinis. It's Bloody Marys and screwdrivers until noon. And then afternoon, I move on to martini and beer. And I just have one every hour. I'm microdosing alcohol. We'd be like, get the fuck out of here. That is crazy. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I'm driving a bus, microdosing alcohol. I'm driving a bus, microdosing marijuana. That's just crazy. But this is the wave of the future. Sometime, mark my words, in the next 5 years, there's going to be somebody that's going to be like, you are violating my rights by not allowing me to stay stoned all day long because I have a medical issue. And you guys are bigots and assholes. And I have to do this. How can you not let me do this? That's what we're going to be faced with because these Nimrods passed this medical marijuana stuff.
In the heart of the city, a vision was born, not just a piece of clothing, but a movement. Vital Apparel reflects not just the raw edge of the streets, but the spirit of innovation to bring about change in mental health worldwide. It's more than a style, it's a statement. A blend of comfort with an attitude made for those who refuse to be average. Embrace the culture, ignite your passion, and wear the revolution. Discover your new favorite piece today and be part of something larger than life. Visit our link now at vtlapparel.com to grab your next outfit. Use promo code ONEMOMENT to get 15% off your order. Why support us? The founders of Vital Apparel, Hung Dao and Alex Kozub, sought out to raise awareness, seeking to change the stigma around mental health. 5% of their profits are donated to Brain Research Foundation, furthering the research in mental health. Vital Apparel sponsors the One Moment podcast. We partnered with one another so that together we can make a global impact on mental health, substance use, and suicide, saving lives one moment at a time around the world. Help us break the stigma. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about our podcast and to connect with us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels to stay up to date on our episodes. Subscribe now. Some photos in this ad were created by Grok.
No, and this is my problem, right? And I see it's been a huge influx since the beginning of the year versus last year. I saw it, but not as much. But this year hit, and it's been this huge freaking boom. And it's like, wow, right? Like, and I'm like you, right? I'm not saying it's good or bad, right? There's reputable companies out there. There are many of them. One of the biggest ones is going to be Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web absolutely one of the largest CBD distributing companies, but they've been doing this thing for years, right? They've been into into the marijuana industry for a long time. They participate in research, like they do a lot for the medical marijuana field, and I support them. I'm not telling you I support the use of CBD or don't support. I support the reputable organizations. But like you said, so I see it all the time, right? Delta 8, THCA, THCA, Delta 8, THCA, Delta 8, store, gas station. Magic mushrooms is a big one too now. So, but what people don't understand about all of the stuff is, well, how is Delta 8 made, right? And the public is being taught, oh my God, it's so natural. And let's look at really what the truth is. Delta 8 occurs this much in the hemp or cannabis plant. So you can't get a whole bud of Delta 8. So how do you make Delta 8? You either extract it or you change it molecularly, right? You chemically change it or you chemically make it. Most of the Delta 8 that's out there is synthetic marijuana or synthetic Delta 8. It's not even real. It's not even natural. It ain't even close to natural, right? The same thing with THCA. Yeah, that's the precursor to THC. Sure, that's the precursor to Delta 9. Sure, it's got to have 0.3% or less THC, right? Right. That's what the package says. But let's look at it even further. THCA cannot exist in the same hand as THC for one, right? So you can't label it as THC because it's non-existent. And then number two, once you put the heat to it, it turns into Delta 9, right? Depending on how much THCA you have, depending on the level of the heat, depends on how much Delta 9 THC you get when you take a hit of THCA. And so there's a lot of problems out there that these people that work in these gas stations and work in these freaking facilities or organizations or whatever companies, tobacco stores, they're not giving appropriate education to the public. So what happens is they think they're getting this much THC when in reality, and Scott, you know it, they're getting this much THC, which cannot be even consumed by any one person, that is significantly physically, psychologically, emotionally, mentally dangerous. I've got case reports of people killing their wife, beating the child, beating this, beating that, experiencing these violent psychotic episodes. There's not just one or two. This is a galore. And I see it all the time as an addictions therapist, right? All the time. And I have yet to see a CEU on it or a training on the specific, this Delta 8 BS, right? This Delta 8 BS, this THCA BS, this whole CBD industry, right? Not all of it's bad by any means. There's many good reputable companies, but for the companies that's out there, there's that much plus bad stuff out there. And I think you're right. We need to talk about it more. It's not talked about enough. Really. Magic mushrooms is another one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What are you going to say, Trevor? You look like you're just leaning forward. Like you're going to say something.
You guys know much about naivety, and I'm saying that because I don't know what in the hell Delta 8 and Delta 9 is, or THC, this and that. It's all THC, psilocybin, this. They've had.
No, it is not. It is not the same, Trev. It is not the same.
Is it something that's produced in a non-natural way? Like
most of it is. THCO is not. There's no such thing as THCO, right? And Mr. Scott, if you want to jump on this bus with me, right? There's no such thing as THCO, right? But people are buying it and smoking THCO. The DEA had come in and said because THCO is synthetically made, it is illegal. But a court overturned that and said because THCO has less than 0.3% THC in it, it is legal. Well, THCO is just as dangerous as Delta 8 is. Psychotic symptoms, psychoses, violence, self-harm, all of those things. And Mr. Scott, if you want to jump in, because it sounds like you've done a lot of studying like I have on it.
Yeah, there's one real, you hit on it, Trevor. You hit on it when you said naivete. That's the issue, and this is what has happened. They passed all this shit really quick, and I'm not saying it's bad. Smoke. I'm not saying I'm not. This is not about marijuana. This is about if we just took the time to think about the consequences of our decisions, and let's say we just labeled the marijuana. There's more information on the back of a box of fucking Oreo cookies about fat, ingredients, percentage of sugar, daily allowance, all that stuff than there is on any of the marijuana products. All it would take, and the government wouldn't have to even figure it out. That all they would say is, in order for marijuana to be sold, anything that has a THC product in it, THC8, THC this, there needs to be a consistent, approved labeling system across all products so that the consumer knows exactly what they're getting.
Yeah. Well,
that's it.
No, you're absolutely 100% right. New Jersey has set the standard on that. I don't know about any other states, okay, but I know New Jersey has set the standard for all THC products that are sold by a licensed dispensary, right? And you have to get a license to sell the CBD stuff in their state. They all must be sold with a certificate of analysis, which that certificate of analysis is basically what you were just saying, is the back of that cookie box, right? Or the back of that crackers, back of that whatever, right? Back of that soda. That COA, for short, it lets the consumer know what is in their product, how much of it is in their product, right? Are there any heavy metals? Oh, and the most important thing I love about New Jersey and their law, it's got to be an independent third party that does it. It cannot be an internal lab. It's got to be an internal lab. So I can make it all day long in New Jersey, right? But I have to get either you, Trev, or Mr. Scott to test it before I even put it on any shelf. And as long as there's accuracy, and as long as it meets that state standard as far as what is safe, I can sell it.
Right.
New Jersey.
I take that one step further, Kevin, is that there needs to be, and it needs to be easily understood by the consumer. And it needs to be the same piece so that you can tell how much one serving is of marijuana potato chips versus one serving of marijuana soda or a marijuana gummy or a marijuana whatever it is that's out there. So you can put all this stuff out there that's gobbledygook, but it needs to be simple. And then people need to know, like we know, you should not eat something that's loaded with this much fat or this much sugar. We learn that. There's an education piece that's in place. No. There's nothing that's being taken from the taxes from marijuana that I know of to do this education stuff to make sure that it's crazy. Yep. And the other piece that we need, and this would be easy to do, any type of marijuana products that are out there need to have some sort of consistent measurement, like proof. We have proof with alcohol. We know there's a difference between an 80 proof bottle of vodka and a 40 proof bottle of liqueur. There's twice as much alcohol in that piece. Yep. That has allowed us to be able to say to folks across different products, a beer equals a glass of wine equals a shot of liquor, roughly speaking. When someone gets pulled over, they have to go to crash, they have to do some DWI thing. They learn that thing of like, this is what's going on. And we have an idea of how much is good. If you go to the doctor and say, I drink, 6 glasses of wine a day, they're going to be like, ah. You go to the doctor and say, I do, 6 2-milligram gummies a day, and they're going to be like, okay. Right? They're clueless. There's nothing that says anything about anything because we don't even have a standard to fucking measure it.
No, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Well,
absolutely.
You guys are actually trying to tell me is that I can find more out about a 39-cent bag of noodles than I can for a plant of or a bud off from a flip off from a plant of weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, the FDA and the CDC, the FDA and the CDC had come in and I think this, and I want to kind of get to the psychedelics too, because there's a lot of stuff on there, especially with your history as far as like what you put in your bio, and then there's also we definitely would like to kind of see if we can address some of the concerns with today's market. But no, there's when you look at the research, right, as far as labeling, Trev and Mr. Scott, if you disagree or if you agree, it sounds like you've done a lot of in-depth research like myself, so I think you would agree. Over 70% of the products that are sold in stores, okay, the label is completely off, completely inaccurate, right? Only less than 30% that were accurate were found to be from reputable sources, right? Such as CB Distillery, Charlotte's Web, and there's several big time names, right? But they've been doing this, and they've put funding in for research. They do their own research. They're big time brands, but research showed that their labels were accurate versus over 70% were inaccurate. And those brands, not big name brand brands, they were just something you can go buy at over the counter at a tobacco store, gas station, things like that.
Yeah, because there's no standard. There's no standard for any of this stuff. They pushed it too fast. It's just like the damn peacocks on the airplanes. You know about peacocks on the airplanes? Like, they passed this bill, God knows when, about Americans with disabilities and therapy animals and service animals. And they pushed it through really quick. This was at like 25 years ago. They didn't think about the consequences. They just pushed it through, and they didn't specify what a goddamn therapy animal was. And then you had people bringing snakes, peacocks on airplanes, horses on airplane. Like, this is my therapy horse. This is my therapy pig on airplanes, and airplanes couldn't turn them away until it got so crazy. It was the peacocks that pushed people over the edge. People were bringing, if you Google therapy peacock airlines, you'll see this picture of this person pushing their luggage with a giant peacock on it that they were able to bring on planes because people in the public health, our government, was sloppy in their planning. It's the same thing that they're doing with marijuana. They're sloppy. Sloppy.
No, and that's why I got together with
Trevor wants to speak.
With some of my team.
He went like this. He wants to speak.
Go ahead, Trevor.
As long as it's a source to bring those greenbacks in, it just gets pushed off to the side. And the more money they can make off from it, the less attention they've got to pay attention to it. As long as that source keeps coming and coming, and okay, they can divvy it up with the leaders, quote unquote, whoever they might be. And that's just really disturbing, because in the olden days, it was just, hey, you go talk to a guy down the street, buy a bag of weed. There you go. You got a bag of weed. Smoke her up, and there you go. Pretty simple. Get a bag.
In the olden days.
Yeah. Get a bag of room. Go do this. Go grind up some cocoa leaves in a rock and mortar pestle. You know, it's just so overwhelming, diminished as long as they can get that stream of cash going and flowing consistently. That's what they really want to protect. So that's just my perspective of it.
Boy, we sound all cynical now. People are like, I'm not listening to these people anymore. They're cynical. No, we're not all cynical. It's just the truth that there's political, social, That's the way the world works, spinning
Yeah.
around.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And no, you're right. We're not always cynical. We like to have a good time and laugh, but
Yeah,
we also like to be brutally honest too about
that's it. Realistic. Yeah, absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in your in one of your bios how psychedelic therapy and meditation supported your journey and why wellness isn't about arriving, it's about staying. Okay, I've heard many things
Many things.
personally and professionally. I need to know like psychedelics and supporting you because of course I would assume that you went the right way to do it versus the gas station way to do it and buying the
Yeah.
magic mushrooms. So let's make a difference there, okay, folks. Listen, we're talking about drugs, we're talking about seriousness, we're talking about humorous things. All serious, all jokes aside, there's help if you need it. You can go to SAMHSA. You can go, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. You can go to dial 988, which is a national suicide and crisis hotline. You can go to a local crisis center or a local emergency department if you need help. Okay, please seek help if you need help. But I'm gonna let Mr. Scott talk now.
I feel this pressure now. Oh my God. Um, I'm so stressed out. I have to go smoke some marijuana and microdose it before I continue, or at least have a shot of tequila to help calm my nerves. Because I take medicinal tequila. That's my diet. Anyway, um, it's interesting the whole psychedelic piece and how that happened for me. And there's two strands. I wrote a book about MDMA. And I'll talk about these separately. And then I've written a number of books on psychedelics. I've written 4 books now specifically on psychedelics and how to use psychedelics and to go there. And for all of these, I want to distinguish between the therapeutic use and the recreational use. Big difference. Big difference. It's the difference between shooting the shit with your friends on a Friday night at a bowling alley and going for group therapy. You're with you. It might look the same. You might all be sitting around in the circle talking about stuff, but it's different. It's different. And so lots of people, think, okay, as they're thinking about psilocybin or any type of psychedelic, I'm going to do this while I'm at a party. What a waste of a therapeutic use of an element. If you're trying to use a therapeutic and you're going to go to a party, it's silly. I had a friend who went to, what did they go to? This was like 6 months ago. I don't know if Madonna, of all people, was touring the country. It was one of these old groups. And if you're young or wherever you're at in your life, any of these musical acts that you're listening to, they're all going to die off. And then at some point, they're going to do the final reunion tour. And then after that, they're going to do the final reunion tour. And then they're going to do the final reunion tour after that, just to get more tickets. And so this was, I don't know, Madonna's 5th last tour of her life that she was doing. And he went with friends, and there were half the people that went to this concert got so blasted on liquor. This is a liquor story. Got so blasted on liquor, they were like oblivious to the concert. They spent like $300 on tickets, and then they got all drunk, and they were totally they're probably in a blackout. Don't remember any of the concert. Why would you do that? Like, why? If you're going to do that, just drink at home, pass out in the yard, and then get up in the morning, and you've had the same experience as going to the Madonna concert. Saved yourself $300, and you can play it on a CD and blast it in your backyard. The same thing is true if someone's looking at doing some sort of psychedelic experience. So a true person who's doing that, when they do it, there's no TV, there's no concert, there's no music, there's no nothing. They're doing it. There's a bunch of prep planning that go on prior to that. A bunch of, assessment, thinking, and really what in the psychedelic world, what's your intention? It's almost like somebody going to a treatment center and saying, what's your goal for treatment? What's your intention on being here? What's your objective? And they craft out this intention, and it's almost like a treatment plan. In fact, some places use SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, timely, all that type of stuff. And then that's your intention. You have your psychedelic experience, and then there's aftercare. They call it integration. And so after the psychedelic experience, there's, all right, how's your life going to be different? What are you going to do? There's lots of treatment planning stuff that goes in there. They don't call it treatment planning, but it is treatment planning. What are you going to do? What's your lesson that you learned from this? Well, I learned that I'm really I really close myself off from the world. Okay, so what's your plan to be more open and engaging with the world? I'm going to do this each week. I'm going to do that each week. I'm going to do this thing. And so the psychedelic experience becomes this pivotal point between where you were and how you want to be. That then bridges that piece. And to be quite honest, there's nothing spectacular about the psychedelic experience. You could do the same thing bungee jumping. What's your intention? What's this? What's that? Here we go. Where do you want to go? How's it going to be? Blah, blah, blah. You could do the same thing. When I worked at Beach Hill Hospital, we did the same thing with the wilderness. We do the same thing when we go on a rock climbing day. We'd say, who's the person at the bottom and who's the person at the top that you're climbing to be toward? And they'd finish climbing, and we'd say, okay, what are the tools that you're going to take away from this that you're going to use? Nothing new about this, really, in terms of the therapeutic stuff that gets put on it. And it's just an event. When I worked for Outward Bound, we used to bring people out for 1 day Outward Bound experience on ropes courses. Now there's ropes courses everywhere. They're like, jungle gyms for fun at amusement parks, right? But then it really was this thing that was nobody ever heard of, and here's what we're going to do. And we do all this planning, pre-work stuff, assessment stuff. Then people would come out, we'd see how they were, and then boom, that there was this event, and then there was all this stuff afterwards. How are you going to be a better leader at work? How are you going to be a better supervisor at work? Blah 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 blah. That we use the experience to tie into. That's essentially a very simplified way to talk about psychedelic therapy. So it's not used in isolation. It is not used as a recreational piece. There's a focus. And, I talked to a guy this past week. He called me and he's planning to go do some ayahuasca retreat. And he says, I need to do this ayahuasca retreat. I'm going to do it in a month. And he said, what do I need to, I want to talk to you afterwards. And I said to him, what are you doing to prepare? And he said, what do you mean? I said, what's your intention? Why are you going to do this? He says, because I smoke pot all the time and I have PTSD. I was in Iraq or someplace that he experienced horrific things. And I said to him, you got to, if this is supposed to be this big deal, it's a really big deal. It's supposed to be a really big deal. You should be preparing for it. And that means eating right. That means stopping your marijuana use today, so you're not going in there foggy headed. And if you have trouble stopping your marijuana use today and you're struggling with it, that's going to tell you something. But if this is supposed to be this big event, you should start eating right. You should turn off the social media. You don't want garbage in your head. You don't want to turn off the news. You want to fast yourself into this piece so you got your head screwed on straight so you can really use it. Otherwise, what the hell are you doing? You might as well be just going to the doctor and getting some medication. And then you have to start, interestingly enough, starts with the preparation. And I don't know a single, and they might be out there, I don't know a single psychedelic therapist or approach that is like, yeah, let's continue the party. You stay stoned and drunk until you get to your psychedelic experience. And there's like, be clean. You want to come in with, um, eat only fruits and vegetables your week before this, like that level of stuff, so that you're, I don't want to, it's when you hear people say you want to honor the experience. And really, if it's that important, right? If you're saved up your whole life to go on a Disney World vacation, you don't want to show up. You're going to plan the shit out of that Disney World vacation. And you're going to make sure you're all ready to go because you don't want things to go wrong because it's really important. And if you're going to do psychedelics, you need to approach it with that same attitude. And that means not being blasted on your way to go do that. He's leaning in. Yeah, Trevor?
That's kind of funny.
Imagine a day where fatigue doesn't stand a chance, where clarity perks up your focus as the clock ticks on. Discover Dubby Energy, the drink that transforms ordinary moments into opportunities. With no sugar and flavors that feel like gourmet art, each sip stirs your senses, readying you for greatness. Dubby Energy is a focus energy drink that contains no sugar and is available in a variety of unique flavors. Their coffee fruit cherry extract is the star of the show. This ingredient is what makes Dubby unique and helps to provide smooth and effective focus and energy, making it perfect for anyone who needs to conquer a task. Dubby flavors are created with one goal in mind: to taste unlike any other beverage. We combine bold and unique flavor combinations to craft an experience for your tongue with each sip. Dubby achieves its smooth, effective focus with a high-end tasting experience while using no sugar, no fillers, and no artificial color or dyes. Every product they create follows the same philosophy: be effective, be clean, and taste as good as nature will allow. Use promo code ONEMOMENT to enjoy 10% off their products. And most importantly, they sponsor the One Moment podcast. They are helping to raise awareness of mental health, substance use, suicide, and much more around the world, seeking to make a global impact, reducing stigmas and changing lives one moment at a time. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about our podcast. Follow us on our social media channels for more information and to stay up to date with our episodes.
You should say that because I've never been to Disneyland. I've never wanted to go to Disneyland. I couldn't afford to, but disregarding, I was like, I watched the Disney Channel Sunday night at 8:00 on whatever channel it was. And so I had the Disney experience. They'd show the little castle thing. And I'm like, even growing up, I'm like, I don't need to see all that. I'd rather be outside playing with my friends, exploring through the woods or something like that. So it was better for me to not get programmed in the that I had to have the things like everybody else had. The minimum things that I did was enough for me. We talked a little bit earlier in this episode about grief, and I have had an overwhelming amount of grief and traumatic things happen to me in my life, and yet a huge lack of resources to be able to get through them. But somehow I've spiritually, emotionally gotten through them on my own. Now, at a point in my life where I kind of got myself hurt, it's changed. So I'm having to adapt again and pivot and move different things around to the sense where I'm recovering my life in a new way that I never even knew was possible for me. And being on part of this podcast is a big portion of that. So I'm moving forward and addressing topics that were pushed aside, that were stigmatically dismissed, discarded. So for me, the grieving things and all these things I've gotten myself up to this point, even to right today in this episode, helping me somehow.
Right. That takes a lot of courage.
Through my personal relationships in my entire life. And being a kid from the 70s was a pretty hard thing. Then the 80s and 90s and 2000. So the progression, it's being a Gen Xer is kind of cool too, but at the same point, all the discussions, and it seems that all the discussion we've had today and all the topics we've pirouetted, like a dancer pirouettes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So dancing around all these topics is really a kind of cool experience for me because I had to help other people in correctional facilities as a correctional officer. That's my former profession. And I got advanced in that to where I was a member of the Goon Squad to stop those people from hurting themselves or hurt. That is the very important part of this and this podcast that I like still having. I still have the ability to do that by helping others to not hurt themselves or hurt others and to be a positive influence to their neighbors, their communities, their regions, whatever. So,
Right.
great episode. And I'm glad that you were our guest today, Mr. Graham.
Thank you.
Trying to close this out or anything, Kevin. And I didn't mean to interject, but I did.
That was a great. In many ways, what you're talking about is that this podcast has been a pivotal point of you and your transformation.
Yep.
Right? You're using it that way. Some people just watch podcasts for bullshit and they don't really connect it. Some people host podcasts and they really don't connect. This is transforming your life. That's how psychedelics are. It's just a thing. There's nothing magical about it. It's just a thing. Like a podcast, it's just a thing, right? It's having a big effect on you and your life, right? Because you're allowing it to, because you're doing the work so the podcast can have the effect. Psychedelics don't work unless you do the work, right?
Right.
Right. It's just a waste. It's just a waste if you don't do the work. And you have to work at a piece that they don't talk about in psychedelics is engagement. You have to stay engaged. And the same is true of life. The same is true of recovery. The same is true of sobriety. You have to stay engaged. There's a great story. It was like a few years ago. This is a great story of lack of engagement. Olympic runner. This woman was had Olympic gold medals. South African woman. She was running in the Peachtree, Georgia, just a little south of you guys in Atlanta, 10K. Not a huge thing. She was winning. She was top of her class. Everybody was behind her. Easily. First place, $10,000, $15,000 first prize. Pretty nice for, a 20-minute run or something like that. How does that come out to like $1,000 a minute or something like that? She had integration. She practiced this as part of her life. She had prepared. She trained. She had personal trainers. And in the moment, she lost total engagement. She was following some motorcycle. There was a motorcycle ahead of her, clearing the path. She's in the front. Get out of the way. Here we are. She was 1,000 feet from the finish line. Everybody's there to take pictures. The motorcycle made a right-hand turn down some alleyway. So because it doesn't want to go across the finish line, there's people taking pictures. And she's right behind the motorcycle, totally disengaged from her experience. What did she do? She followed the motorcycle down the alleyway. She was halfway down the alley. She went through the crowd. She was totally, I don't know where the hell she was totally off course. Where was her mind? Where was totally disengaged? By the time she realized what was going on and she turned around and got back on the course and ran to the finish line, she came in third. The same thing happens with it. They don't talk about this in psychedelics. It's the missing piece. People need to be talking about engagement. And it's the piece that you, Kevin, were talking about earlier when you're talking about being more focused on the client. There needs to be engagement, not just paperwork or this or that or all these other things, because that doesn't serve us. Anyway, that is a core piece of psychedelic therapy that I don't think people are addressing enough. And I hope before it spills out all over the country, like it seems to be going in that direction, that piece gets addressed.
No, it is, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, and thank you for making the explaining the difference between psychedelic therapy versus rec use on the side, because there's a huge boom right now. There's a huge boom. It's getting worse as time goes on, but it's the magic mushrooms. I'm sure you've read about it. They and this is my concern, right? And I'm mispronounce his name. Amanita muscaria, or however you pronounce that. That's a type of hallucinogenic plant that is legal in the States. Well, it is federally legal. Don't know about on every individual state now. And it is similar to psilocybin. And so it can be sold legally, right? You don't need, you don't need a license or whatever to sell it. But the problem is when you cook it and you process it, it does not all the time kill all the toxins, right? In 2023, in Virginia, right? In Virginia, a man, I think it was about 6 family members, ended up hospitalized. And when the investigation found that they bought some magic mushrooms at a tobacco store, or a local store, excuse me. And so investigators could not find that specific package, so they bought like 6 different brands or 6 packages of another type of magic mushrooms, and it had in there that Amanita had different labeled out the ingredients. Well, 4 of those 6 packages actually ended up having psilocybin and psilocybin or something. So it was psilocybin and like another ingredient that was related to, which is of course federally illegal to sell. And so 4 of those 6 packages had those ingredients in it, along with other ingredients that are dangerous for human consumption. And it said on the package, right, there were undetermined amounts, right, of Amanita, however you pronounce that mushroom specifically. They couldn't even find it. They couldn't even find what was labeled on the package, right? And so, and of course, I've got that in my presentation too. I've got different case studies in there, but it is literally becoming a huge heck of a public mess because of there's lack of regulation in psychedelics on the public level, and then you have this huge loosening of restrictions on a federal level where you can start trying this, you can start researching psilocybin, you can start like all of these things. And so you're right, there's a difference between actual psychedelic therapy versus the magic mushrooms that are being sold in stores.
Those are like moonshine. I think of the Delta 8 stuff. It's the hemp stuff, and I think of these mushrooms that are and all these other things that are. It's like somebody selling bath salts, and there was a bath salt craze that people were doing this.
Yep.
It's all moonshine that was being made, or alcohol that was being bathtub gin that was being made during Prohibition, and God knows what the hell it was that you were getting. That's for people that are listening to this. That's how cocktails came about, because this stuff that was being made in the Prohibition was so awful. They had to put juices and other shit in it to cover it up, and it was full of all kinds of toxins and crap that people were looking to get wasted from stuff that was made because they couldn't get it legally. Right? There was no legal beer. There was no legal alcohol. It was gone. And so it was all being produced, and it was all really sketchy and all really dangerous. Same thing. It's moonshine. That's somebody made in their backyard and selling at a gas station.
Feeling lost or alone, struggling with unbearable trauma or addiction. Every day feels heavier than the day before. The weight of unaddressed emotions and problems can leave you paralyzed. On the One Moment podcast, we are aligned with the vision and mission of the Place to Heal. Founded in Sanford, North Carolina, the Place to Heal is a growing multi-specialty mental health and substance use practice dedicated to facilitating healing and personal development. Our team of compassionate clinicians are committed to providing evidence-based therapeutic interventions tailored to each individual's unique journey. We are passionate about empowering our clients to overcome challenges and achieve emotional wellness. The Place to Heal hosts and sponsors the One Moment podcast. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about our podcast and to be connected to the Place to Heal. Follow us on social media for more content.
And
Yeah. No, 100%.
That's critical to do something about that, because one of the most recent things that I've had a personal experience in learning about, not doing or using or promoting in any way, shape, or form or fashion, is a new phenomenon here in America with combining a horse tranquilizer called xylazine, which is not for human consumption in any possible positive way, but they combine that with another crucially, excruciatingly dangerous chemical. That was, what is it, Kevin? What is the name of that chemical they put it with?
Fentanyl.
Yeah, a combination of xylazine and fentanyl, which 2 grams of the size of a crystals out of a salt shaker can kill you. But yet they're going to in there to give it a bigger dose, another jolt of a new chemical experience that is crucially extremely dangerous. Flesh-eating bacteria. I had to take a certification course out of the sponsored by the state of Philadelphia to treat the wounds that can be developed from this thing that are huge. They expose your skeleton because it rots your flesh completely away, like a flesh-eating bacteria type thing, and it's just terrifying what people are using and doing to try and get some kind of a buzz off from, and that not being regulated. But they're going to every extreme to use whatever they can seem to get a rush off from, and I don't understand it anymore at all. It seemed to be when I was a younger kid, the hippies from the 60s, who are all the influences of my personal life. It was just alcohol, drugs, and another substance. Really simple. But then I started learning that they were doing PCP. They were doing heroin, and this is a progression throughout the early years of just opium back in China in the 900s. So, anyways, the progression that things are taking now in the times and the regulations and all the applications that people can do to use to make a source of income, it all boils down to me to simply the fact that if it doesn't produce money, they're not so much interested in it. But if a big pharma can get involved in it, or if a corporation or a business can make money off from it, everybody's going to get involved in it. So all these things that are happening, it's terrifying anymore to just think of the idea of using chemical substances, including alcohol, the one bad one that there is, as a way to escape the reality of dealing with reality on its terms as it happens. So I don't really know kind of where I'm going with this, other than the fact that who in their God's green earth would really want to use a horse tranquilizer or a horse chemical developed specifically for horses to try and get a buzz off from? Where did this even come from? It's really critically hard times in this world anymore. To me, that's my perception.
It's not so much, who would want to do this. It's what has the world become that people are chasing these highs with such desperation for whatever they are. We've become saturated with information and things that were once, abnormal are now normal. And part of our regular existence, because a great example is pornography. when I was a kid, maybe you'd be lucky enough to find like some magazine that somebody left around. Now our phones are a portal to every single thing. And then, I mean, things you never even heard of, right? And people start watching, something like Simple Vanilla Sex. And next thing you know, that doesn't cut it anymore because they've watched it and watched it. And that's become the normal. And they're looking for some sort of buzz, some sort of thing, and so they move a little bit away from vanilla sex, and then that buzz becomes normal, and then they move on to this, and the next thing you know, it's whips and bondage time, right? It's all out there. It's all out there, readily exposable, ready to go. And the same thing is true with substances these days. It's all out there, ready to go, and people hear, "Oh, this was good, but that's better." And, "Oh, this was better, but that's even better. And let me try that because I'm getting to the." And the truth is, as you said it, we got to accept reality where it is, because it's a piece that's really the piece. People are trying to create something that's not good for themselves.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with both of you. And then I'm gonna say this too. People don't know what's in there. And even the simple drug test kits that you can get, not the urine drug screens, but the drug test kits and urine drug screens, right? They don't test for every substance out there. They just test for your primary benzos,
Right.
fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, meth. Right? They don't test for xylazine. That's a specific test. That's just like the marijuana test. They don't test for CBD versus THC marijuana, right? Or anything like that. But there is one lab in the country that I know of that actually has a CBD marijuana test. And they can actually break it down and tell you whether it's CBD or whether it was actually marijuana you used. So that is interesting. But that's a very expensive test. That's about $500 a test. Last time I looked at it. Yeah. So you also mentioned, and I know we're pushing time here, and I have to go. I got a 4:30 appointment, but you mentioned, because we've spoken about it a lot. You've shared a lot. Yeah, you shared a lot, and I think this will be a good place to kind of start wrapping up a little bit before we get you scheduled for the next. Right, man. I love
visits.
You mentioned it's about staying and not arriving. And I'm curious because so many times we often hear, "Oh my God, I can't wait till I get to that goal," or "Oh my God, once I complete the goal, then I'm good," right? I've always said it's about the journey and not the end. So I'd like to kind of get your perspective on why it's about staying and not arriving.
Yeah, because we've been hypnotized. Earlier, you were talking. Remember when you were talking about Sigmund Freud and Adler? That piece. There was a time in the world where people were happy with what they had. Everybody wore brown clothes. Everybody, you could get your Model T Ford in any kind of color you wanted, as long as it was black. There wasn't a lot of stuff that was there. And then with Sigmund Freud, he came about, and Carl Jung came to America and influenced the marketing. And suddenly people realized they could sell stuff if they made it really individualized, sell stuff if they tied it into our identity. And so then this became this piece where, you need to get a blue. I mean, it's not just a blue, it's a Caribbean indigo. That's the color car you want to get. My brother, before he died, he saved up, he bought a Jeep. It was a brown Jeep. He's like, "Oh, no, it's root beer." I'm like, "That's fucking brown," right? No. It was root beer. We had this huge discussion, and I'm like, "I don't see it. It still looks brown to me." But he was like, "It's such a pretty color." He's totally wrapped up into that. That's the world that we became into. And then at some point, this whole thing of selling stuff, even tying into things like women's rights movement, the women's right to vote, and the women's rights movement tied into cigarette smoking, because women asserting their independence smoked cigarettes. All these things manipulated over the years, to the point where then in the 70s and 80s, it's become about, who am I? I need to be a better person. I need to discover myself. I need to go. This whole psilocybin stuff is just another outgrowth of that, right? It's like, I need to have the next experience, the outward bound experience. I need to go to the top of the mountain. I need to swim across. I need to run a triathlon, and on and on and on and on and on it goes. Because at some point, if you walk across the searing hot coals like they do in Tony Robbins courses, you're going to have some sort of enlightenment, and you will have arrived. You will have arrived. And oh my God, my life would just be so much better if I could only arrive. If I could only, I have to do that psychedelic experience because I have to arrive. That's going to get me some point. I have to do this thing. I have to go to this meditation retreat. I have to have this therapeutic enema. God knows what the fuck it is, but it's all about arriving someplace. That once I've had this thing, I will have arrived. And the truth is, you're already there.
Right.
You're already there. You don't have to go anywhere. Somebody else is telling you that you're not there. You're there. And so all I had to do, especially like with grief was, everybody was like, yeah, once you do this and this and this and this, then you'll be there. Then you'll arrive. And it's not about arriving at all. It's about staying. For all of us, staying in relationships, staying with our family, staying true to our values, staying true to our ethics. We've already arrived. We don't have to go anywhere.
That is a phenomenal place to
Mr.
wrap up.
If there was one,
Trevor's going crazy.
there was one thing that you could give to our audiences, whether they be digital or recorded, what would be the one thing that you would do as a call to action to tell people to deal with everything, culmination of overall?
I'll give you one thing you can do. Easy peasy. You're probably watching this on YouTube. When this gets to the end, go into the search box and type Century of the Self. It's a 4-hour PBS documentary, BBC documentary, talks about these pieces of this drive to try to, how we've been hypnotized. And I think just like in treatment, like somebody comes in and they've got an addiction, someone comes in and they're depressed, someone comes in and they're anxious, you have to have some education and awareness of how that's become a problem before you can start to move that. And watching Century of the Self, right after this is over, watch 4 hours. Are you paying attention to this, Lou? I'm trying to get this guy, Lou, to watch this. Watch this video, Lou. Because I know you've only watched 20 minutes of it. But watch it. It's really good. You'll be like blown up. You'll be like, holy shit. He was right. Oh my God. You'll be blown away. There we go. So you were going to say this is a great way to wrap it up.
Thank you.
In your efforts to wrap it up.
No, thank you. This has been a phenomenal show. I appreciate you coming on. I am humbled by this one. You have been a phenomenal speaker, a phenomenal guest. Thank you.
You're welcome. What a privilege.